This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leader, today I'm honored to have Kevin Dean on the show. He is the founder and CEO at ManoByte, and we're going to talk about AI today. He's had over 2 decades of experience with business process automation, CRMs, and intelligent automation. So we're going to have a lot of experience going through and talking about how we as leaders can use newer technologies to benefit us and our companies. Anyway, with all that being said, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, it is a pleasure to be here, John. Super excited to have this conversation with you.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into business and process automation, and what is it that you do over at ManoByte?
Yeah, glad to kind of tell the story. So I actually went to school for computer information science. That's what my degree is in. And when I went through school many years ago, uh, one of the things that we learned is artificial intelligence and how data drives, decisions within an organization. Wow, imagine that. Right. And so in school, a lot of the things that we learned were very theoretical, right?
Mhm.
Right. And a lot of the concepts that we learned a lot of the concepts, which are the foundations for what we see today. After school, I went on to work for a couple of Fortune 500 organizations where we were applying how to transform organizations. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth, was in large enterprise organizations that were driving at scale, right? I did a lot of digital transformation. We didn't call it that back then, but that's what it was. It was digital transformation. And it got to a point where, I was tired of, in corporate America, there's only so much value that you can actually drive, right? Because those are just large companies. And so I wanted to go out and provide solutions for organizations at scale. And so that's why I left Fortune 500 company and started ManoByte. And ManoByte was started, with the same purpose of what we're doing today, is to really help overwhelmed growth stall businesses unlock speed, scale, and simplicity through automation, right? And using automation and technology to help drive their go-to-market strategy, their customer service, and operations. So that's our story.
Awesome. So in doing this, I'm sure you've come across many customers and businesses that haven't really been using automation at all. And what is the biggest success story that you can think of where you've had someone come in and you were able to really go through the process and figure out all the, I don't know what you call it, if you call it repetitive or mundane things, or things that can easily be automated, and kind of took that low hanging fruit and really had a true superstar success.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I started ManoByte in 2008. And since then we've been able to work with, thousands of companies at various sizes and levels. And we've worked with, small companies all the way up to, Fortune 500 companies. And so we've been able to see a variety of different levels throughout the years. But one of the, I guess, case studies and success stories that we've seen, to your point, is that even in these large companies, so we've worked with lots of, multi-billion-dollar companies who are literally running their companies on spreadsheets and old systems.
Oh, wow.
one company, not going to name any names, but a very large company, they're literally running a $4 billion organization off of, a DOS-based system. I'm not even joking you, right? Um, and their sales team were, running sales operations, $4 billion, out of spreadsheets and, Microsoft Outlook. That's how they ran their company, right? That's just they. So we see that we still see that today.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does not surprise me. So, like, I cut my teeth in the telecom industry, and I have friends that still work, for ISPs and stuff, and they're still using, AS400s and like COBOL code and green screen to do order entry and things like that. It's just shocking how well, it's a testament to the old developers that built that they could build something that could last that long and be that solid. But
yeah,
you've got to innovate.
so true, so true. Yeah. So, um, I'll tell you a success story, and this is something that your audience and others will be able to relate to. So one of the companies that we were able to help grow and scale by automating their processes is NerdWallet. So everybody knows
Yeah.
NerdWallet, right? So if
Mhm.
you go to any game, you're going to see NerdWallet, So everybody knows who NerdWallet is. But they were doing a lot of their partner ops and their sales. Um, Most people know them just because of, great content, how they help manage money and all those things. But in order to fuel that, they work with a lot of advertisers and a lot of other people. And a lot of those, the ways that they make money, they were literally managing deals in spreadsheets and through Outlook, right? And so all their contracts, all of their processes, all their deals. And so if, a customer wanted to increase the size of their spend with them, like literally that was happening via an email exchange, right? And so, like, there was no automation, there's no
Wow.
system managing any of that. And so, we were able to come in and operationalize that, put in a system that would bring in automation, intelligence to be able to track and to integrate that with their contracting system. So, we love telling the NerdWallet story because it's something that people can relate to. How we were able to take a company that was really, stuck in managing a large organization in spreadsheets and, Outlook, and we're able to automate that for them and to put in a system that really helped them to scale.
Yeah. It it's just one of those things where like you look at I keep going back to running a massive business off of a spreadsheet, but so many companies just do that, and and also, you're talking about tracking things through email. That's really very difficult to search and really kind of go back and have trends and find true data, yeah, you can automate it, but also just having the ability to go back and look through that. There's, wealths of advantages there, more than just the time. It's also like the data that you can acquire through that. And I'm sure your company like deals a lot with what you can do with that data now that you have it.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the challenges, so I'm not talking about NerdWallet. That was just a case study of one of the customers
Right.
that we work with. But what I'll say is what we see happening is kind of what happened with uh, cellular technology and mobile devices. So
Mhm.
around around the world, there was a large number of companies who kind of skipped over the internet bubble, and they didn't go to building a ton of apps, right, and doing a lot on the web. But when mobile came, everybody leapfrogged, right? So they're like, oh, we didn't catch on to the internet, bubble, but we're going to leapfrog and hop into the mobile world and start using mobile to do a lot of things that they didn't do when the internet was happening. And now what we're seeing is that there's going to be another leapfrog, right? AI is helping to leapfrog companies who didn't adopt tech. Now they're leapfrogging over to leveraging AI in order to start a new transformation. And the reason why they're doing this is because AI now has the ability to help them eliminate some of the fear of change. And that is why companies don't change.
Yeah.
They're afraid of moving from something that is good in fear of going to something that is great, right? So even if something is working just a little bit, they would rather stick with that old DOS-based system instead of going to something that could get them greater productivity because they're afraid of changing the system that they have now. Well, what AI is doing, and I'll give you an example. Now we can use tools to go into my Outlook email, find all the information that the sales rep wouldn't enter before, and put it into a system without having that sales rep actually go and do what they wouldn't do in the past. So that gives you a leapfrog factor, right? So instead of trying to, pull the sales rep along to do something that they won't do, like now there's tools that allow us to go through an email, put it into a system that allows you to get that visibility, allows you to scale, allows you to do automation. And AI is that middle tool that allows you to leapfrog from the old into the new.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing more and more businesses, incorporate this. And, one quick story, I was actually at the doctor. I took my kid for a physical earlier this week, and it was a new doctor that we haven't seen before. And usually, like, you go to the doctor, they'll bring up your chart, they'll ask you questions, and you answer a lot of times the exact same questions, 30 times. But this time the doctor came up and said, before we start, we're trying out something new. We're using AI to help populate some of these forms. So instead of asking you to fill anything out, we're just going to have a conversation and let AI record it. And anything that's missed, then I can go back and ask you those questions later. So he did that, and we just talked. He asked, some of the questions, introduced ourselves. We talked about the kids and their past stuff. At the end of it, he's like, "Look, the form's already filled out. I don't need you to fill out anything else. It's already taken care of." And then that was attached to our My Chart, emailed it, to us at the end of the thing. We can go through the app, we can check it all, and it's all there. And it was all captured without me having to fill out another form like we normally have to do at the doctor's office. So I think it's, just one example of how these tools are out there and people can start using them in, what I would consider a novel way, using them at the doctor's office, which is usually one of the last places that adopt some of the new tools. So
Yeah, I love that story for multiple reasons. The first reason that I love that story is because AI is creating a better customer and user experience.
yes.
Right? You had a better experience because of the doctor using AI. The doctor actually also got a productivity win, right? Because they were able to spend more time with you instead of worrying about the data that they were collecting. So that was a great thing, right? And so it's funny because I've got this, I know this is kind of not going to be a visual, but I do have this is Applaud. And if you don't know what Applaud device is, like this is a personal device that automatically records transcripts, uses AI, and now it's automatically connected to ChatGPT, and it will actually give an individuals and business the ability to just go from here to populate any type of form or information that they would need in order to create a better experience. A lot of doctors and the folks in the medical space are using these types of devices to be able to create that better user experience. So
yeah, and that device is so small. It's easy. You just put it in your pocket, just like it's like having another wallet. It's so smaller than a wallet.
yeah, it is. I mean, and there's so many great wins and capabilities that this gets. But this leads us to the next topic, and that is because of these, this brings up the governance, security, privacy, and transparency issue. Because the truth is, everybody should assume that they are being recorded all the time, right? Because if someone has their phone, if someone just has their phone, you can assume that you're being recorded, right? Now, these personal devices everybody has, you don't know that I have this device. Like, so you and I are just out and about, we're having a conversation. Now, like, you should just assume that you're being recorded wherever you are and wherever you go. Now, to some people, to hear that freaks them out, and they're saying, "Oh, AI is bad because now everywhere we go, we're being recorded and blah 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 blah." Well, the truth is, like, everybody's always been recorded. It's just that now everybody knows about it, right? So nothing's changed, right? And to that point, I'll give you a quick story about a company that we did some consulting with years ago. Early on in our career, we were working with a grocery store, not going to name names, and they brought us in and they said, "Okay, we want to show you what all the data that we're working with and what you have to work with in order to provide the services that we were going to provide." And this was and they brought me in. They showed me their data. I went home that day and I told my wife, "I think I'm going to throw up." Right, because this was the first time that I was exposed to the amount of data that the grocery store has on every single individual that walks into the store. They literally they know everything about everybody who walks into the store. And that was over 15 years ago that happened.
Wow.
And so you think about now the amount of devices that give people access to data. Everybody's being recorded at every single moment. And so I think we just need to come to grips with that. But that also does mean that there's a need for new laws, new regulations, new transparency acts, like the ability for people to opt in and to opt out. And there's a lot of sticky things that are now becoming more visible. And now not just the multi-billion-dollar companies have access to collect data. Literally, the mom and pop shop, when you walk into their store, have the ability to track and know everything about you, right? And so that means that there's a lot more people that have access to these tools that everybody needs to be thinking about. And need to have a plan and strategy in order to manage that internally and externally.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I kind of struggle with when you go back to that privacy, just realizing that everybody is, recording, something somewhere, even this conversation is being recorded. It's one of those things where like, you can think of it as a negative, you want to have your privacy, but also you can also think about what are the benefits that I get from being able to go back and look at it. And, I internally struggle with that. Do you have other clients or customers or people that you work with that also struggle, like have an internal struggle with the value you get from something plus the, privacy that you're trading for that value?
Yeah. So, the truth is everybody is struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is struggling. And everybody is struggling at different levels, right? So I think there's not a company that we've worked with who doesn't have a struggle. And even if it's not the company, 100% in every single organization, you're always going to have individuals who struggle at one level or the other. We are big AI proponents. We understand the capabilities. We understand the risk. But, I struggle personally every single day, right? And I spend all day, every day in the AI space, right? Understanding it. And I understand the benefits and we talk about the benefits, but I also understand the risk. And does it scare me? Sure does. It sure does. And so, but that's the thing, is that there needs to be more conversations around this, right? And the more conversations that we have, then we're able to, understand it and move forward in a responsible way, in a way that helps us to understand what is the way that we should act. And the thing about it is this, there's always going to be bad actors, but the number of bad actors is always less than the number of good actors, right? And so I think that's always good to keep in mind. We still have to protect against the bad actors, right? But the good, always outweighs the bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of the comforting part of it, right? Is that there is always some good out of it. What kind of ways do you encourage? Let's say let's say you're a director of a software engineering team and you haven't really adopted AI the way you probably should. You've kind of been hesitant, for whatever reason, and now you realize like I've got to get in this. I've got to get doing it. What are some of the first steps that someone should take? Or maybe they're a small business owner and they're not really using it for their team. Maybe they use ChatGPT occasionally to help craft an email or two, but they're not really like you know adopting it the way they should. What are some best practices and ways that people can do that?
Yeah, I believe that education is going to be the first step that people need to take. They need to understand the breadth of what is possible, right, within their domain. So I think everybody should take time to go out there and try to educate themselves as to how it's going to impact your role. So I think that's number one. And there are some great resources out there that are available. And we're actually launching August 15th. We'll be launching a Build AI Literacy platform. It's literally buildailiteracy.com, which is able to give people just education on the different domains that they should be thinking about from their perspective. And we've already published, a um, a guide as to what each different role within organizations need to be focused on. And there's basically 6 key roles that people should be focusing on and the different things that they need to look at. So that's something that I'd love to share with your audience, after we can include it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely link that
So
up.
education.
Sure.
Education is number one. Number two is to use, whatever tool you use, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or X, whatever it is, ask it to tell you and to give you a plan on how you can increase your skills with AI. And you'll be surprised that it's going to actually give you a plan that is reasonably and works for you, right? And so use the tool to tell you how to grow and learn and to take the next steps. I think that'd be a fun exercise for people to see, and like, wow, oh, this is giving me my own game plan and personalized to me. So I think that is great. But you mentioned developers.
Yes.
Oh, you opened Pandora's box.
Let's go through it.
Did you do it on purpose? I think
I did.
You did, didn't you? All right. So let's just, you opened the door and let's just say it as it is. I think Microsoft is going to lay off a minimum of 9,000 developers within the next month. AWS just laid off 40% of their dev staff, right? So literally we have Google, I can't remember the number of folks that they laid off, last month, right? So this is a trend that we're seeing in the dev space, is that dev jobs are going away. So if you are in the developer space, stop fighting it.
Right.
I think that is my number one piece of advice. We have developers within our organization, right? And like, I know developers, I know how they think, right? And my developers are like, it's not going to be able to do what I do. It's not going to be able to replace me. And I'm like, dudettes, we're not trying to replace you, but you got to realize that there's going to be a lot of gains that you will get, right? We know you're super smart. Like, we love that you're super smart. However, everything that, I won't say everything, 90% of what you have been doing, AI can do better. Mm-hmm. But that 10% is where there's a ton of value, right? And so there's so many great tools that are out there that they need to be thinking about, and they need to be thinking about developing new skill sets, right? I think that's going to be the biggest thing, and helping to lead. I believe if you work yourself out of a job, you'll always have a job. And that's counterintuitive, right? Because you might think, oh, I'm trying to hold on to my job, I'm going to keep it. It's actually the opposite. Like,
Right.
show the value to your organization by saying, look, here's how we're going to leverage AI in order to get rid of the work that I'm currently doing. Great. That's gone. Now, what you have now is a lot of domain knowledge that AI doesn't have, and that is never going to go away. So that's my second piece of advice to developers is build unreplaceable domain knowledge for whatever organization that you have. That's going to be invaluable.
Yeah, I think it goes, what you're saying fits perfectly with the way that a lot of bad, poor leaders kind of lead, because they feel like, oh, I've got to protect my job. I've got to, make myself irreplaceable. But what you really should be doing is building the next person to replace you, because you will never be able to move to the next level in your career if you have to continue doing the job you're doing now. You have to have someone else that can do the
100%.
job you're doing now so that you can move to the next level. And going back to what you're talking about with developers, that's one of the things I've been playing a lot around, around a lot with different AI tools one of the things that I started, I built my first iPhone app in 2010, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And, back then it was just, and that was really before Swift too. You were writing Objective-C, code and just,
we're taking it back.
yeah. So you were, it took a long time to build like a nice little game that you wanted to put together. And just goofing off, recently I was just saying, hey, build an app that does this, and you have to know how to prompt it. You have to know how to test it. You have to know like the things that you should be asking, because if you just say, like I was trying to do something with an HTML app, and it was just, I wanted to build a HTML5 app. Well, it was pulling in all these other resources, and I said, no, it's got to be an offline. It's got to run offline. It's got to have this. It's got to use SQLite. It can't use, these other things. And having the knowledge to know what to ask for and what the requirements are and what the restrictions are, and how to go back and validate that it's actually doing the things that you want, are important skills that, developers today can easily, adapt to and learn those skills and take that on. And honestly, if I was a junior developer out there, that was, I would be using AI on everything that I do. Not just for the fact that it can do it better than me, but also I can learn from it quite substantially. I mean, the code is clean. It's nice. It's better than I would write. It's got better comments than I would put in there too.
Yeah. And so I think you said something that is super important that is worth doubling down on just for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And just because anybody can build an app using AI doesn't mean that everybody should, right? Because you're able to do it because you have that foundation and that base knowledge of what fundamentally code should look like and how it should be structured and how it should be worked. Right. And so there's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to use AI to build apps that initially may appear to be good and work, but won't scale and will cause problems later. And those are things that only a true developer will understand how to actually make those pieces work. There's a lot that can be done, 100%. But I don't believe that everybody is going to be a developer and you're going to see everybody developing apps, because there are other skills that are going to be needed. And and I think that people should, it's interesting. I relate it this way. People are going to do it just like, people used to get their, teenage son to build their website for them. Should they do that? No. Did they do it? Yes. Right. And that's going to be the same way with AI and building apps. Can you do it? Probably. Should you? No. Right. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that, but businesses who want to scale and be successful long term, I think they know that that's not the right path forward.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And, that is one thing, like, people are going to want the easy way out. Just like you said, have your kids do it or something like that. Oh, you've used ChatGPT before. Have it build me an app. And I've actually seen business leaders come to, IT departments and software teams and say, "Hey, I use ChatGPT to build this app for me, and it's doing everything that I need." And then you look into it and you're like, "Yeah, but it's not." I've seen one example where they wanted to create something that would store, information into a form and save it for them. Well, it was storing it into like HTML cache. It was just caching the data. So every time you opened it, it was still there. But if you ever cleared your cache, it was gone, So there was no real storage going on it. There was, and the user didn't understand that you really need a server somewhere in the cloud that stores this information. You can't just run it on your desktop all the time. And, you can't, you have to have authentication. You have to have users. You have to be able to share this. There's a lot of things missing with just having ChatGPT put together, a form that stores things temporarily.
Yeah, and I think that there are things, again, going back to this because it's so important. Um, what about all of the security challenges that every app has to have that you're not thinking of because you're not in this world, right? So yeah, it built the app and functionally it looks like it's doing what you said, but you know, are you really going to run your organization and expose, your data, your company secrets, your security, your revenue to an app that's not, checked from a security standpoint where, there's going to be a new strain of, viruses that go out and look for AI built apps that are completely vulnerable and they're
Right.
going to take advantage of them, right? Those are things that people aren't thinking about that when they go and say, oh, I'm just going to have AI do it for me. Okay. Good luck with that.
Exactly. Good luck with that. Yeah. So you kind of mentioned that there are some security concerns when it comes to like using AI for building apps. What about, and I think you kind of just alluded to it there, putting your company data in there. What are some of the concerns we have to have with putting our company data in there? Because I've seen, um, I've heard stories. I haven't really seen it in my own house where people have put like, they've taken a contract that has proprietary, pricing or something like that and posted into, ChatGPT or Copilot and said, "Hey, can you, rewrite this or do something like that?" And now that data is, off somewhere and who knows where and who knows, can it be searched? Can you ask ChatGPT, do they have pricing information for this customer? Will you get it back? But what do we need to know and think about when it comes to that kind of scenario?
Yeah, so this is a interesting answer that I'm going to give, because was that the case 2 years ago? 100%, right? 100% it was, right? Is that the case now? Not necessarily. So what I think needs to happen is, number one, I think you need to have good governance and understand how whatever application you're using, you have controls over the settings, right? And so most people, they get a subscription to ChatGPT and they don't look at the settings and they just start putting everything in there. And oh, I didn't go in and say don't share, don't train model, which are settings, right? That you need to go in, check, and set, right? So I think that that's one thing that you've got to be aware of. And then I think there is this myth of, oh, my data is exposed if I put it in there. Not necessarily. Your data is exposed because it's publicly available someplace else. Right? And those are two different things that people don't understand, right? Your data is exposed because it's publicly available someplace else. So there are other best practices that companies should have that they should be enforcing that they're not. The other thing which is interesting is recently, a lot of these tools are now exposing your data through other tools. Like now you can, I'll just talk about ChatGPT, but other tools have this too. So now I can use ChatGPT to connect to my SharePoint. I can use it to connect to my Google Drive. I can use it to connect to all sorts of different platforms. And it may seem like, oh, that makes my life easier. I can just keep everything there And now I can use this as a source in order to go after what I want. But the problem is most companies are not securing those platforms, right? And so they don't have the right security on their Google Drive, right? Or their SharePoint folder. And now when they connect that to a tool like a ChatGPT, now they've exposed that information to everybody else within their organization who probably didn't have rights to see that, right? Right. And so those are the types of things that I think you really need to think through and understand. What are the rules? What are the settings? Do I have the right permissions set on my organizational data? Right. The thing that you also need to be careful is, how you're using these different tools, because it could be confusing. Like one of the big things, a lot of these tools have memory, right? And the memory that it uses may give you, answers that are in conflict and not validated. And so those are all things that you need to think about. So it's not just about, is my data secure in the tool? The tool isn't the problem. The problem is governance and the way that you do things in the business are now being exposed because in a way that we probably didn't realize you had already had these leaks before.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, that makes total sense. There's other aspects out there as well, permissions and things that we don't really think about sometimes whenever we're putting stuff out there, like when we do connect Copilot in with our OneDrive or our SharePoint or something like that. Then yeah, absolutely. So Kevin, what have we missed? What have we not covered when it comes to AI and transformation and automation that we as business leaders need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think what we haven't talked about and what everyone needs to be thinking about is, how does my company now create value in an AI-driven world? Because the game has fundamentally changed, right? So your data is still your key differentiator, but it's only your unique data, right? Some of the things that people used to have as their value driver is no longer a value driver. So I think all businesses need to start thinking about how do we create sustainable value long term. And those are strategic conversations that aren't technical. They're not about the tool. It's about where we are now in the world as a society and how do you continue to create value as you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being able to think about the values and what value you're going to, provide and how to do that is, fundamental in being a good leader and running a good business and, providing, again, that value or that service to your customers. I think that's super important. Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I love digging into this kind of stuff and these digital transformations using AI and other tools that are out there. It's been fantastic. How can people learn more about you, your business, the things that you guys are doing over at ManoByte, and connect with you online?
Yeah. Oh, great. So if you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, kevinjdean.com, and that's where I share my thoughts on what's going on in the world of AI. If you're interested in, connecting with me online, I am super active on LinkedIn, glad to connect there. And if anybody's interested, in solving and helping your company grow and scale in this AI-driven world, please go out to our website at ManoByte.com.
Awesome. And I'll link that in the show notes too at keynote.com so you can go there and click through. Again, Kevin, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you on.
Thanks so much. This has been a great conversation, John.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.